life living and making a living can sometimes wear us out, grind us down, and dull our senses. So for a keen mind and a sharp contributive edge that can make it all easier and better and more productive, let's take some time to sharpen our axe. Stay with us right now for Life Talk.
Hello, I'm Gina Fitt, and you've either surfed to or purposely selected Life Talk with Bern Moses. Welcome to another in our series of ongoing verbal essays brought to you in this television format. It's a pleasure for us to have you with us today. Bern, welcome. Another wonderful week. It's great to be here, and we were lucky enough to have Stephen Mills return.
Hi, Gina.
Thanks. Thanks for being here. We love it when you're able to come from your busy schedule and be on the show with us, and I think we were going to let you introduce the topic today, Bern.
Yeah, we had some fun last week talking about interviewing, and after the show was over, our producer came in and said, wow, what a lot of great information. And he said, I bet there's a lot more coming. And I said, yeah, I think so, because this is one of the critical points in a person's life or a company's life, that interview be done well and those selections be made properly. And so I'd like to continue, and I'm sure I have some ideas to throw out, I know each of you do, on things to do or not do from both perspectives, the interviewer and the interviewee, because there is a potential out here for a huge amount of mistakes. I mean, I've been interviewing people now since 1955. Thousands upon thousands, and I cannot believe sometimes the things that occur or do not occur in an interview. And I know what my perspective is when I'm interviewing, and wondered why sometimes it doesn't run over into companies and other things. So we can kind of continue in that vein. I know, Stephen, you made a comment, I think, after the last show about one of the key questions that an interviewee should ask the interviewer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Often I've urged students of mine in the corporate world to, as they proceed through or choose another company, to certainly ask in an interview, what is it? If you're my manager, the hiring manager, and will be the team leader for my responsibilities and activities and function, I need to ask you, what is it that will ensure your next promotion? And that's what I need to be busy about doing, so that it makes certain that there's a contribution, a commitment, if you will, a reliability factor where I'm funneling or channeling my energies and efforts toward that process for you and your sake.
And so that it doesn't seem Pollyannish, what is that about?
It's about identifying what are the essential pieces that make certain you thrive. And certainly, in most circumstances, the team that helps that occur, or ensures that to occur, are going to be brought along with that manager, typically. Though I don't ask it for that purpose, it certainly would be rational for a person to expect or suspect that will occur.
They should be able to see that if they could create my promotion, that would create an opening. And the one that contributed the most to that happening may be the one selected, although that's never a guarantee. But certainly, Is there anything else from an interviewer's point?
Well, I was just going to add to that. Certainly, that is a well-known and very much expected procedure in a political campaign. The people who help to fight for the candidate's election are the ones who get appointed to the most lucrative positions or powers of influence upon the election being made sure. So it stands to reason that if you're going to form a team, a fighting team, a winning team, a team that's strategizing on how to be most successful, that you want to make that clear up front. I'm a team player, I want to be part of your team, and we're going to win. And what's it going to take for that to happen? I'm loyal, I'm dedicated, I'm hardworking, and I'll do what it takes. So
what are some other adjectives that you could employ in conveying what your intentions are as the interviewee? In other words, for example, you said I'm loyal, I'm hardworking. What are some of the other adjectives that might be employed?
I think one of the most important is curious. I investigate and search for those things that are missing.
Good. Okay.
In addition to taking care of the responsibilities that we know exist for this position to exist, what is it that is being left undone? For a number of reasons, not to scapegoat or to cast blame or to humiliate any other coworker, to say how can we pitch in to make this whole effort go more smoothly?
Problem solving, streamlining,
Yeah,
simplifying,
contribution, doing more than is
clarifying.
expected,
Yeah,
I think, is the key.
absolutely.
Because they don't hear that. I tell you, the interviewer does not typically hear that. Contribution, commitment, and explain what you mean by that sometimes, because they don't really understand where you're coming from. But the fact that your commitment for a period of time, that this is what you will do without reservation and focus. Contribution, punctuality is a word that I've never heard. People say, one thing I will tell you, I'm punctual. To the point where I will be here early just in case. I'm not going to take a chance on being late, and I hope that's appropriate. This type of thing. They anything else? I can throw it back at you like that.
Some of the things that are important now is to state clearly your intention with the diversity of the workforce. What kind of history you have in diverse workforces, so that the people who are hiring you onto a team can understand that you already are adept at working with people of all backgrounds, all ethnicity, all physical abilities and perhaps disabilities.
Good.
All circumstances of people's functionality as co-workers and teammates. It's thrilling for a manager to have someone bring it up instead of having to search it out by someone's subtle questions or not too subtle questions. And it's really an important factor.
Is it possible to dress, not too well? Yeah, is it possible to dress too well at an interview?
That's an interesting question. I can just tell you, part of the research I've done, the books I've read, where other people have done a great deal of research, says that there's actually a uniform that's acceptable, and that's actually required almost to be professional and presentable in an interview. For men, it's a white shirt, not a striped shirt, not a colored shirt, a white shirt.
Would that be true, though, if he was applying for a job at a service station?
Yes.
Okay.
According to the research, yes. A conservative suit, well-polished shoes, very well groomed, no dirt under the fingernails, even if he's applying for a job at a service station. Now, of course, there's going to be some variance in that, but what kind of an impression is that going to make on your potential employer to see that you cared enough about them, especially if you were applying for a job at a gas station, to get out your only suit that you never wear because you want to make a good impression and show them that this was important to you, this position. And it's the same for women. Again, a white blouse, a conservative charcoal gray, navy blue, dark suit, very simple jewelry. Those things are, and our viewers can go and read the books and get all the information themselves and see, because at a subconscious level, these suits, these costumes, say something very strong and clearly about us, who we are, what we think, how we act.
How would you interpret if the employer denigrated that effort? Because if you came, for example, to get a job as a waiter at Denny's, and you were dressed with a white shirt and tie and jacket and what have you, and the manager, kind of was repelled by that, how would you interpret that?
Well, you're not going to know how to interpret something until it happens to you. And it is important, again, as part of your research, to understand that particular company, the style of the company, the atmosphere, the flavor, and the requirements of the people you'll be interviewing with. And there may be exceptions. There are exceptions to every rule.
Because I can see where some managers would be intimidated if you presented yourself better than he was. And yet, maybe you don't want to work there.
Maybe you don't.
That's the
And again, maybe he wouldn't be intimidated nearly as much by how you dress as by your style. And if your style is very much polite, respectful, you're definitely the man in charge, I'm here to look good for you, it might make him feel really good that you cared enough about him to dress up to impress him.
Here's one thing I wanted to get in before we got too late and see where it goes. My sense is that every interviewee should go to that interview as though this was the only job he would ever have a chance to get. You know what I mean? To do that best possible interview in the best possible way that he could. And the reason I say that, I cannot believe how many times people have come to an interview looking down their nose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, asking inappropriate questions. I mean, really hostile. It's just amazing to me. Even if he didn't want the job, my sense is that you should practice a great interview so you'd be ready, you know, when you got the one you really wanted.
Exactly.
And the same thing with interviewers. I mean, to make every interview as competent, as professional as you possibly could, even though you may realize you don't want this person, out of deference to that person, and number two, out of deference to the fact that you're going to be ready if you've got a great interviewee. Am I making that clear?
Yeah.
And those on either side to shoot your best shot every single time.
Absolutely.
So that it's practice.
Absolutely. And if you know it's a position you don't want, don't waste their time. If you don't think there's potential there for you, don't
That's
do
it.
it. Because you have to have respect for people.
But conduct yourself well up to that point when
Absolutely.
you leave. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's amazing to me
Yeah.
how many times people are so incredibly inappropriate. Oh, how about taking your spouse, sweetheart, or your dog with you?
No
unless
one.
you're,
You
unless
should
you're,
not take anyone with you.
unless you're just seeing eye dog.
Yeah.
A lot of people bring company.
Yeah.
You know, you wonder
Moral
what is,
support.
Yeah, what's going on there?
There should be no one in the waiting room.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Make them stay out in the car. No, I'm kidding.
Anything else for the interviewer? I mean, we're getting both sides here pretty good, but how about the interviewer? Any particular questions that you think were just profound, really well done? Or as an interviewer, what would you ask someone? What are some of the things that you would want to get in?
I think it's important to ask about the person's long-term plans. What do they want out of their lives? What do they want to accomplish? What do they think they can, not only what can they bring to the table, but what do they expect? Because a lot of times I think it's important to clear up expectations instead of...
I was trying to think some of the things I ask people as an interviewer if they're coachable. And it's kind of fascinating. They will say, well, oh yeah, and I'll say, well, are you prepared for coaching right now? And I get permission, and then I'll coach them on something, particularly if there's a double interview type thing. Like I might say, you know, if you've got a pocket here, you should have a pocket square in there. You know, like a hanky should be in that pocket. And I would recommend that when you go on future interviews that you put a hanky in there, you know. Okay, so, and I'd see how they manage that. Okay, and especially if they come back for another interview. If the hanky's not there, that would be pretty indicative they don't listen. You know what I mean? And that's happened a lot.
Sure.
Or in getting permission to coach, and you do some coaching, there's always something someone can be coached on, a subtle thing, you know. That when you're coaching, if they really get uncomfortable, if they get, you can see they get rigid, this may be a difficult employee. He's really not coachable. Because coaching should be kind, but it's always a little stinging if someone's going to make a suggestion. Now, I stress the fact that we don't do criticism here. We don't even do constructive criticism, because that's still criticism. But we'll make a lot of suggestions, and we will coach you. You know, and I think that's terribly important. As you ask people if they're coachable, I've asked people too. I have a lot of fun with this. What is it that you're most excited about in your life that you could talk about into the wee hours of the morning and just never get tired of it? You know, I mean, what is that? And it's amazing how many people can't come up with anything, which is a pretty good indication that they're probably not going to be that excited about your job. You know, if a person doesn't have that propensity to excitement and focus, and you know what I mean,
Yeah.
be able to focus on anything. I mean, I wouldn't think so. Everyone should kind of have some idea. What is it that really turns me on? What do I really enjoy? Or I would say, you know, for example, how old are you, Gina? Oh no, excuse me. Whoa. They can say, but you know, if you say, okay, someone is 35 years old, so you've had 35 years. What's your highlight? Now, what's the highlight of your life? Your peak experience? Some idea that you've had, you brought it to fruition, carried it out. You know, whoa, what happened? You know, and it's amazing. A lot of people can't think of anything. Or they might say, "Well, my child. I had a son." You know, Now, I mean, cockroaches do that.
Oh.
I'm not interested, you know what I mean? Like if he said it's being a dad, you know, that would be different. But, you know, just to have children is not a peak experience. I mean, in this sense of the word.
Sure.
But yeah, a lot of people have never had one. No peak experiences. So probably this wasn't going to be one of them. I guess what you're looking for as an interviewer is intensity and awareness, aliveness, you know, a sense of who you are. And if a person doesn't have that to offer away, so therefore, on the other side of the fence, as an interviewee, you should be checking into yourself. And if there isn't anything that's that stimulating to you, you better find something, because this may be it. You know, only got one shot at this. You know, you ought to get excited about something and be able to look back. What would you say, Stephen, if I asked you, what was your peak experience in your? We won't even say how old you are either.
I'm
This
48.
guy is ancient. Yeah, he's 48 years old. That's almost a half a century. What's the highlight of your life?
Oh, I have
did you-
so many.
Me too.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I could go on and on.
Which is better, richer? Oh, that's unfair.
Yeah.
It is unfair.
Uh-huh.
I've published, I've done photography and published. They're hanging in a gallery. Birthing 5 babies, planting 12,000 trees, finding a variety of a green ash tree that's being propagated for distribution in the nursery industry. These are,
Leading the nation in an
Yeah.
international company
yes,
as a salesperson
top
and
sales, top
representative.
quality in their world of customer service and sales. Hearing a grandmother say of her son, actually, that now do you believe me? Now do you believe me? After having presented a program to the actually the Sioux Nation. It was Mandan, Hidatsa, and the Sioux Nation were gathering in this one particular presentation I was doing on Native American plants. And this elder woman came up afterwards and said this to this great man who was beside her. It was her son. And turned out that he was the chief of the Sioux Nation. And I was so amazed. And yet she had been telling him about these things that I'd just spoken about in the presentation, and yet in his life he'd not believed her. Oh, I was in tears and happy and glad,
Yeah,
and
that's
you know, we were just, it was an incredible experience.
Oh, what one thing really turns you on? You could talk about all night, and you're excited and interested.
Nearly anything. Curiosity, anything. Any person's life or dilemma or concern or focus. Yeah, it's endless.
That's what we're talking about. You know, just aliveness. To bring that to the interview, and for the interviewer to seek it out,
Yeah.
and have a right to expect it. I think an interviewer has a right to expect this aliveness from someone, because this is not just a job. You know what I mean? If it's a job, well, come on. I mean, it's. Yeah, but boy, I'll tell you, it's so much excitement out there. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, what's the last book you read from cover to cover? Is one of my favorite questions. What's the last book you read from cover to cover? And you know right away if they have to think too long, it's been too long. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, and you get a really good sense of that. And whether it was fiction or nonfiction is not important. But if they haven't read a book, you know, for a memorable amount of time, this person is not growing.
Yeah.
Well,
You got to read.
yeah, but you know, I couldn't answer that question because I never read a book from cover to cover. I'm usually reading 10 or 15 books at once, and I read a chapter here and a chapter there, and
But do you complete them?
5 chapters.
You don't have to read it. Go. I don't mean necessarily
Not always.
here to there.
I don't always read it from cover to cover.
Well, if I start a book, I'm
Because
compelled to complete it. I
No,
just have
I'm
to.
not. Sometimes I'll read 4 or 5 chapters, and that was more than enough
Uh-huh.
of the information of that author, and it was what I wanted and needed from that book, and I'm ready to go on to something else, or I am already reading something else. The only things I feel compelled to read from cover to cover are novels where I have to figure out what happened in the end. And if it's a bad novel, I just read the end.
I've done that.
You know, if it's really good and the writing is impeccable and just the style and the grace and the wonder and grandeur of how this person puts words together, that compels me to complete it. But most of what I read is for information only, and so I read what I need. So
That's a different kind of reading.
It's a different kind of reading.
Yeah.
So maybe, and I can't ever remember the names of them.
But if I was the interviewer, that'd be a good answer. I'd go along with you, Gina.
Anyway,
They,
but you're right. What are we doing to feed our minds? What are we doing
Uh-huh.
every day to feed our minds? That's really crucial.
One of my favorites too is, of course, I'm interviewing a lot of people who are going to be independent, contractors and what have you, and that oftentimes sizable amounts of money are involved. I mean, a person could enjoy some handsome incomes, and so typically we'll find out what kind of income would make them happy, fulfilled, and what have you, and get a number. It might be 50,000, 60,000 a year, whatever it happens to be. And one of my favorite questions is say, okay, now what you need to do is tell me what you do not want to do in order to make that kind of money. Now, I'm not talking about honesty and integrity. I'm not talking about this kind of thing. I'm talking about functions of the profession. What is it that you do not want to do? And it's fascinating. People sit there and they've never been asked that before. And most people are open enough to say, well, I'd do almost anything for $50,000 a year. I mean, I can't think of anything I wouldn't do. Now, there's a lot of things they won't do, but they don't think that way. And so then I go through and I begin to outline the functions of the business and say, now, which column would you put that in? Okay, and would you do this? Would you use the phone to prospect? Would you go door to door? Are you willing to travel? Are you willing to dress every day? Are you willing to, script? Are you coachable? And you start listing those things down, and without realizing that person's making commitments that he will do all of this. If he puts it over here, I'll be willing to do that, I'll be willing to do this. And by the time you're through, you got a pretty good idea of what you might at least have the right to expect. At the same time, if he says, no, I don't want to knock on doors, that doesn't disqualify him necessarily. But to be able to clarify that, we've had a lot of good luck. What do you not want to do? For example, in a job that you would take, in the field that you might be in, what is it you do not want to do? And I would think it'd be appropriate to say, well, I'd rather not travel. You know what I mean? That would be a good answer, because I have children and I prefer having a major part of their life every day. Or I would not, what else would not want to do professionally? I don't mean lie, cheat, but functionally. Is there anything you would not want to do?
Well, see, those are good questions. And something that what someone I talked to recently said also is that it's important as an interviewee to distinguish yourself. And perhaps what you want to do is go in there and say, I am willing to travel, because so many people nowadays aren't. And so you want to kind of have a good idea
know what they need, sure.
of what they need and what they're not likely to get from other people. Everyone else is going to be saying, I want this much money and I won't do these things. And you can say, well, I'll do it for this much and I will do these things, or whatever it is, to somehow distinguish yourself.
But there's some things you wouldn't want to do no matter how much the money was, I would think. I mean, there were some things that I just don't want to do, and if I can't.
As long as it's legal, moral, ethical, and non-fattening.
It can't be fattening. It's fascinating. Anything else here? Our time is running down. I can't believe how quickly it goes. But
Yeah, question. Is there value, do you think, in the interviewer describing the company, its culture, how business and the life of this team is conducted, so that the interviewee truly gets a clearer view of it, and so there's not the pulling and almost a deception going on, or the hiding of what it's really like? I've gotten a sense that that's where most interviewees put forth their better interview.
when they know.
When they know, instead of this hiding and cloaking what it is that we really do or expect in terms that aren't clear at all.
I read something some time ago that really made a lot of sense, and I've seen this happen, and I think I've been subjected to it, that a person, an employee, if you would, really didn't understand what he was supposed to do entirely until 5 minutes after he'd been fired.
A lot of times.
In other words, when they fire you, they say, well, this is what we needed out of you.
Yeah.
You didn't give it. And he never heard any of that.
I think they have a responsibility to ask.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, because you can't expect your employer. I mean, it would be nice to, but you can't expect they're always going to be able to communicate to you what it is they want from you. I mean, I had a situation come up this weekend in my personal life where I said, I told you this way, this way, this way, this way, over the last 18 months. Every way I could think of, I thought I made it really clear to you that was my intention and my thought on the matter. And the other person was like, I never got that.
Never got it.
Oh.
And so you don't know how much of it is you're not clear, or their unwillingness to see it or hear it or understand it. But I think there's a responsibility on both sides. And if you feel like there's frustration or tension, whether it's in an interview or after you have a job, or there's some kind of nebulous uncertainty going on, ask. Ask until it is clear. Don't just take the first
Because it
answer.
will come up,
Yeah.
or it will diminish.
Right.
And the one or the other is going
Right.
to get you.
Right.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Time is running down again, and we wanted to celebrate once again the fact that if anybody wants to know more about what we do, how we do it, and why we do it, or background or whatever, they can check in on our new website, www. Whoops. What is it? Bern. That's BERN, MOSES, BernMoses.com.
All lowercase.
Yep. Yeah, lowercase. But in a domain, I understand you can put capital B, capital M if they want to on a domain. But yeah, we got several delightful pages. Our webmaster, Scott Johnson, did a wonderful job. And we've already had a lot of compliments. And by going in and visiting, you can register as a guest and have a chance to win our entire seminar series for two. And that's several $100s worth of material. That you said is worth, what, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's a lot of fun. Or just give us a call at 916-366-8749, and we'll send out a couple tickets to a free concert. You get a flavor of what we do. If you're outside the area, be our guest at 800. Don't you use this number if you live in 916 area, though. 661-3490. And it's about Life Talk. Lifetalk. And this is Gina Fitt and Stephen Mills, and I'm Bern.
Moses.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Bern.
you.
Have a great time.